Hello everybody, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric, and today I'm taking on a really big task of ranking every roller coaster in the Cedar Fair chain. There are 105 roller coasters that I'm going to rank today. A few notes: I have not been on all of them, there's been closures or some parks I have not gone to, but for nearly every roller coaster I've been on a clone or something like that. So, while I've not been on all 105, I've been on many of them. The other thing, with the exception of kid coasters, I will include every ride in the chains. And it has to be open, so I'm not doing former wooden coasters that are RMCs. I will not include things like Wilderness Run or Timberline Twister, but I will have Wild Mouse coasters and family-based ones. But nonetheless, let's start. These first six are all like really terrible rides that I would rather ride after going on a Wild Mouse. Like, these are the worst. Number 105 is Flight Deck at Canada's Wonderland, my least favorite ride of all time. It's rough, it's painful, I hate it. Number 104 is Time Warp, also really terrible, and at Canada's Wonderland. 103 is Anaconda at King's Dominion, a really bad aero looping coaster despite a cool underwater tunnel. 102 is Corkscrew at Cedar Point, everyone hates it, everyone knows. 101 is Dragon-Fire at Canada's Wonderland, slight improvement over the former, but nonetheless, pretty bad. And 100 is Nighthawk at Carowinds. After riding Firehawk, I thought this would be really good. It was way worse than the really great Firehawk. Rest in peace, Firehawk. 99 is Grizzly at California's Great America. I have not personally been on it, but I have been on a very similar model, and it was really rough and painful, so I'm ranking based on that. Numbers 98 through 95 are all Wild Mouse coasters, all more or less the same, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And 94 is Flying Ace Aerial Chase. I prefer the suspended family coasters to Wild Mouse ones, but none of these are anything great. 93 is Kitty Hawk at Carowinds. It's another one of those suspended family coasters. I think the name is kind of clever, but other than that, nothing really special. 92 is Silver Streak, also again, a family suspended ride. 91 is Ricochet, a slightly better Wild Mouse. As I have been on this one, it is a pretty good one actually, a bit faster than others I've been on, but nonetheless, nothing amazing. 90 is the wooden Woodstock Express coasters. One of them is at Carowinds, one's at King's Dominion. The Carowinds one is really rough. I would have put it a bit higher otherwise. 89 is Woodstock Express at California's Great America. A steel coaster I've not been on, but I've been on similar ones, and they're pretty fun. And 88 is Ghoster Coaster at Canada's Wonderland, a slightly better version of the wooden Woodstock Express. 87 is Corkscrew at Valleyfair. I hear this one's not really that bad, but I have not judged it for myself, so I'm still putting it pretty low down. 86 is Michigan's Adventure Corkscrew for the same reason. 85 is Carolina Gold Rusher at Carowinds. Probably one of my least favorite mine rides because it's actually really rough. 84, Wild Beast at Canada's Wonderland. This one gets a lot of hate and it is pretty bumpy, but honestly it's not as bad as other wooden coasters I've been on. 83 is Excalibur at Valleyfair, a fun family coaster. And 82 is Thunder Run, Canada's Wonderland's mine ride that is not particularly interesting, but it's also not particularly bumpy. 81 is Jaguar-Knott's Berry Farm. I actually really like this one because while it is slow and more of a people mover type thing than a roller coaster despite being based like a mine ride, it's very well themed with its Mayan, Aztec sort of thing, temples, and you go through the loop of Montezooma's Revenge, which is really cool. So it's a pretty well laid out ride. 80's Adventure Express Kings Island. Despite having a pointless lift hill at the end, despite really good theming on that, it is actually a really fun mine ride and I enjoy it a lot. 79 is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. It's a classic as far as mine rides go, one of the best, and I enjoy it. 78 is Carolina Cyclone at Carowinds. I didn't like this one per se, but I didn't hate it either. It's a mediocre aero looper. 77's Iron Dragon at Cedar Point. My least favorite suspended coaster because it's the least intense, but it's still kind of fun. And 76 is the Bat at Kings Island. Better, but still not anything great. 75 is Avalanche at King's Dominion. A lot of people like these bobsled rides. I'm not super fond of them, I think they're a bit bumpy, but this one's still pretty fun and had nice theming when Volcano was still open. 74's Blue Streak, one of the oldest rides in the chain. Some pretty good airtime, though it is also a bit rough given that it's over 55 years old. 73 is Coast Rider at Knott's Berry Farm, maybe the smoothest wild mouse in the world, but also one of the slowest. 72 is Backlot Stunt Coaster, a really fun family launch ride with cool theming. 71 is Pony Express at Knott's Berry Farm. The interesting cars elevate this above Backlot. And 70 is Spinning Dragons, a Gerstlauer spinning coaster, and those are always very fun. Number 69 is Thunderhawk at Michigan's Adventure, another Vekoma SLC, only I hear this one's not really that bad. So before I go on it, I'm not just going to rank it all the way down just because Flight Deck is terrible. But I haven't really been on this one, so maybe it'll go lower or higher if I see it again. 68 is Sierra Sidewinder at Knott's Berry Farm, a more unique spinning coaster than the Worlds of Fun one. 67 is Thunderhawk at Dorney Park, a wooden coaster that is supposedly being removed, but I don't know a whole lot about that. It's not that bad, but it's not great either. 66 is Zack Zoomer at Michigan's Adventure. I've been on a clone of this one and I really liked it. 65 is Zapple, a wild mouse at King's Dominion that has a really good first drop. And 64 is The Fly at Canada's Wonderland. Maybe the best wild mouse in the world, as it is actually a really intense ride. 63 is Boomerang at Worlds of Fun. I have been on many Vekoma Boomerangs, but not this one. I don't know a whole lot about this one, so I'm ranking it lower than the others, but there are some really bad ones out there, so it could change. 62 is High Roller at Valleyfair, a pretty fun wooden ride. 61 is Gemini at Cedar Point. While not the most thrilling, it's a really fun racing roller coaster, and I enjoy it a lot. 60 is Steel Venom at Valleyfair. 59 is Possessed at Dorney Park. 58 is Wicked Twister at Cedar Point. All of the last three are impulse coasters by Intamin. They launch really fast, and I've only been on Wicked Twister, so they're all pretty much the same ride, so they're all pretty much the same ranking. 57 is Wolverine Wildcat at Michigan's Adventure. I hear bad things about this one, but I kind of also think I'll give this one a chance before really giving it a terrible score. 56 is Patriot at California's Great America, one of those converted B&M stand-up things. I like most B&M stand-ups. I don't know a whole lot about the floorless thing, but I'm sure this one's okay. 55 is Vortex at Carowinds. I really like this ride. I even made a video about how much I like some of the B&M stand-up coasters. This one's really smooth, at least for me, and has some good elements, even if it is pretty short. 54 is Vertigo at Kings Island. Better than most Boomerangs, as it is a pretty interesting model, but nonetheless, it's not particularly great. It's just pretty fun. And there are a few better Boomerangs out there that I got really good rides on. 53 is Grizzly at King's Dominion. I like this one. Cool terrain, and a lot smoother than the California's Great America one. And 52 is Rougarou at Cedar Point. This one's first half is stellar, especially for the kind of ride it is, but its second half is painful, so it's not getting any higher than number 52. Number 51, The Bat at Canada's Wonderland, a Vekoma Boomerang that most people don't like, so you probably hate me for this decision. But I really enjoyed this ride, perfectly smooth for me, really intense inversions, and it was my first one, so it gets a little credit there. 50 is Demon at California's Great America. I haven't been on this particular Demon, but there's a very similar one in another park. It's really fun, well-themed, and a really good aero looper. 49 is Hurler-Carowinds, a small but intense wooden coaster, better than Apocalypse the ride, I'd say, but not a particularly great one. And it's like almost a top 5 ride at Carowinds, because Carowinds doesn't have a whole lot outside of its 3 best, 4 best rides. But Mighty Canadian Mindbuster at Canada's Wonderland. Okay, hear me out. A lot of you think this is rough. I rode it 3 times while there. I thought it was perfectly smooth, some pretty good airtime at points, and it weaves through water slides, which I thought was really cool. So some people don't like this one. I had a great ride though. 47's Wonder Mountain's Guardian at Canada's Wonderland. It's like Knott's Berry Farm's Iron Reef, only it's a roller coaster with one drop, I think. But it is a really fun dark ride, and it would fit really well at like a Universal Park, I think. But it's not a particularly thrilling ride. And 46 is Timberwolf at Worlds of Fun. I haven't been on this particular wooden coaster, but I've been on similar ones, and I really enjoy them, so that's why it gets a pretty high ranking amongst the other Cedar Fair roller coasters. Number 45 is Vortex at Canada's Wonderland. Now this is a suspended coaster that everyone can enjoy. It goes up Wonder Mountain, goes down a really awesome drop, really intense, easily the best aero suspended coaster I've been on. I've not been on Big Bad Wolf, however, rest in peace. 44, the Flying Cobras at Carowinds. This is my favorite Vekoma Boomerang. It's very smooth, decently intense, and has the best name of any roller coaster out there as far as I know. 43 is Montezooma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm, a really great launch Schwarzkopf shuttle coaster. I really enjoy this one. It's a bit short, but it's also really fun. 42 and 41 are pretty much the same dueling racing wooden coaster, you know. They have good airtime, but not a whole lot else. But they do rank pretty high. Number 40 is Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point. Some people love this one. I get a lot of pain, but I still did get some pretty good airtime when I rode it. Number 39 is Silver Bullet at Knott's Berry Farm. I think it's a decent B&M invert. I really like this model, but this one's a bit slower than others. Number 38 is Flight of Fear. You launch into a dark tunnel, and you go around a bunch of loops and stuff. I like it. I think it's probably a really scary GP coaster, but not particularly amazing. 37's Talon at Dorney Park, more intense, but the layout's still not as good as other inverts. 36 is Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. I have this in my list of overrated roller coasters because I thought it was actually a bit rough, and there's some good elements, but it's mostly not anything special. 35 is next, Patriot at Worlds of Fun, a better B&M invert, and 34 is Hydra the Revenge. I just really wanted to talk about this one because that JoJo roll and the unique layout really make this stand out amongst other floorless coasters, especially in the Cedar Fair chain. Number 33 is Flight Deck at California's Great America, a really intense, underrated invert I hear, but I have not been on it personally yet. 32 is Xcelerator at Knott's Berry Farm, a really fun, intense, but somewhat short launch coaster. 31's Raptor at Cedar Point, a really intense, awesome first half. The second half gets a bit bumpier, but it's still a very good Cedar Point ride. 30 is Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland. Not the best dive coaster, but I really like it. And its system for bags and loose articles is actually really cool. 29 is Afterburn at Carowinds. An intense B&M invert, but not necessarily as good as others, I think, because the layout is a bit compared to a few others that I will mention later on. 28 Steel Force at Dorney Park. I haven't been on all of the Morgan Hypers, but I hear this one's pretty good. It's smooth, airtime filled, so it's going to rank pretty much where all the other Morgan Hypers will be. And that includes Mamba at Worlds of Fun and Wild Thing at Valleyfair, which take the 27 and 26 spots. 25's Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. It's a cool Mack launch coaster, interesting layout, and there's nothing that bad about it, but it isn't particularly great either. 24's Valraven at Cedar Point. Some people don't like this one a whole lot. I have great rides on it though. Some cool elements. Some of the brake run stuff does bother me, but it has a good enough layout that I'll give it some credit. 23's The Beast at Kings Island. Some people really don't like this ride, but I love it. It's a long one, really cool, great layout, very intense the whole time. I enjoyed it a lot. And 22's Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. Obviously, it's a really great airtime woody, and everyone knows that. So that's pretty much where it would fall. I haven't been on it personally yet, but I've been on similar airtime woodies, and I'm sure it deserves to rank pretty high. 21's Dominator at King's Dominion, in my opinion, the most underrated roller coaster out there. It's a really intense, perfectly smooth, well-designed floorless, and my favorite B&M floorless, including Kraken in that. I've been on Kraken, I've been on some good ones, but I really like Dominator. 20's Intimidator at Carowinds. The trims kind of hold this one back, but it's still a decent B&M Hyper. 19's Renegade at Valleyfair and 18's Prowler at Worlds of Fun. Two very similar GCI Woodies. They're both really great, but I don't have a whole lot to say about them. 17 is Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. I talk about this one in my most underrated coasters listed well, because I thought the inversions were great, the airtime hill was actually effective, there's some good intensity, and the very smooth but intense nature of the whole ride really helps it out. 16's Banshee at Kings Island, my favorite B&M invert for its unique, smooth, fast, and intense layout, and everything about it really makes it stand out amongst B&M. First group in the top 15, number 15's Orion at Kings Island. Though not open yet, from what I've seen, it's not really going to be that amazing. Sure, it's a Giga, and Gigas are good, of course, but this one looks a little bit weak compared to the others. The airtime looks okay, the layout looks a bit short, and doesn't utilize Kings Island's unique terrain like Mystic Timbers or the Beast does, and it looks a bit smaller than the other ones. It almost is a B&M Hyper pretty much. It's not even 300 feet up. The drop is 300, but honestly, I don't have high expectations for this one. Number 14 is Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. A really intense B&M Hyper with a really great first drop, but not as good as a few others. 13's Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. One of the most overrated coasters in my opinion. I like it a lot, the intensity is fantastic, but the airtime is not, and the first drop and turns are really the only particularly great thing about the ride. Number 12 is Diamondback at Kings Island. Now this is a ride. The water splash kind of adds to it, but it's an all-around fast, tall, airtime-filled, intense, well-paced B&M Hyper. 11 is Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. The last Giga in this round of 15, but it's a really good one with great airtime, very long, and I do enjoy the ride overall. In the top 10, starting off, Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Everyone knows this one. Awesome first launch. That launch might be the best part of any roller coaster ever, especially in the front row. However, the ride is a bit too short to get any higher than 10th. Number 9's Maverick at Cedar Point. I struggle placing this above the Dragster, but it's a really intense, awesome launch coaster, even though the restraints sometimes really hurt. 8 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. Obviously, everyone calls this the best GCI. I've not been on this one personally, but from what I hear, I think it deserved a really high spot on the list. 7's Gold Striker. Again, I haven't been on it, but I also think it would be really good. So I'm placing it amongst the other Coasters International wooden coaster that I've been on. Because number 6 is the one I have been on, Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Amazing ride. Intense, airtime filled, well-paced, long. I love everything about it. And I would put it in the top 5, but the top 5 rides do put up quite a fight. Number 5 is RailBlazer at California's Great America. This one has the advantage of being an RMC, which means it's automatically good, because that's kind of what RMC does now. This is a single rail coaster, really well paced, and from everything I hear, it deserves a spot in the top 5. I haven't been on it, but the people who like this ride would probably be mad at me if I didn't include it. Number 4 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion, RMC Hybrid. Naturally, it's going to rank pretty high. Number 3 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. Most people would disagree with me, but I love this ride. It's tall, fast, long, good airtime, really intense, at least for me, on every ride I get. And the first drop is really awesome, and the night ride is unforgettable. I think it deserves a lot more credit than it's been getting. And number 2 is Fury 325, my favorite roller coaster for a while. Better than Millennium Force for being longer and having more unique elements. B&M never really fails on Giga or Hyper coasters, so of course, this had to rank pretty high. And number 1, of course, is Steel Vengeance. Some people might disagree, but many will agree with me, I'm certain. I love this ride, it's my favorite. Unbelievable intensity. The ride seems to go forever. The first drop is fantastic. The airtime is the best on any roller coaster. And I came to Cedar Point just to ride this. I was not disappointed, even when it was closed, like when I ran to the ride. But I got on like a few times, and it is easily my favorite roller coaster of all time, and ranks the highest of everything in the Cedar Fair chain. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit long, but I really wanted to do something more ambitious. Subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And check out a couple of other ranking videos I've done recently. And in the comments, let me know if you want me to do this for Six Flags next. Because Six Flags might be even tougher. They have way more than 105 coasters there. Nonetheless, see you next time.